All right, let's do this.
All right, so we have drummer Zach Miller, who is joining us on this call.
Yeah.
He's the drummer on the video. Zach, thanks so much for contributing your incredible talent.
Oh man, I wish I could have been the drummer on the actual record, but that didn't happen. But I'll do it on the video anytime.
Well, and you only had to play, 1 minute or so of audio.
Oh, I mean, if there was any more, I would have fallen off my chair onto the floor. So it's a good thing.
Man, yeah, so cool. And you may recognize Zach as actually my kids did when they watched this video.
Oh.
They said, that's the guy who played when Sarah Groves played here. So that was pretty cool. They knew who you were. So for anyone watching this video, we had Sarah Groves come out here and perform a concert, and we did release some video footage of that. So. Check out Zach playing on that. And Zach, you want to talk about your Instagram page a little bit too?
Yeah, sure. I most of my content, I mean, relative to other drummers that you find, I think, on Instagram, I definitely am not the guy that's showing you how to get the gig. If you want to get the gig, do not pay attention to what I'm doing, okay? But I really value exploring my instrument as a craft in and of itself. Yes, it belongs in musical context, but I like to explore, like, what can this instrument do just on its own? What is it capable of? How can we reimagine how we approach it rhythmically or texturally or those sort of things? And so a lot of the things that I put on my page are kind of fringy, not necessarily like how to play this song better, but hey, let's take this thing out for a drive and see what this instrument can do. And so as I continue to learn and expand, I like to share those things with other people. So that's how it ends up being.
Cool. Yeah, I could watch Zach play drums all day long. But let's get into this 1 minute clip. So I had approached you because this piece is so difficult to count. And when I first heard it, I was in the car. I remember I was driving in the car.
Yep.
And I loved Chon's first album. It's called Grow. And so when this came out, I was so excited. I bought the album, listened to it right away. I got to this song and I was like, what?
Yeah, it's special.
Yeah, and then, I was like, okay, cool. They got this choppy rhythm thing coming in. And then the drummer starts playing 4/4. And I was like, what?
Yes, right?
So can you talk a little about why does this work? Are they playing in 4/4 or are they playing in something else?
That's a great question, actually. It really depends upon the player. I think if you want to flex a lot of mental muscle, you count it in the chunks of 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5, because that's going to come out to, if you add that up, it adds up to 32, which conveniently is the same number of 16th notes that you find in 2 bars of 4/4, right? So you know that by the time you get to the end of the cycle, it's going to come around evenly. But it's just, if someone wants to, flex the mental muscle to think in the odd meters, that's one way to do it. I, myself, when I first heard the tune, again, I didn't hear that 4/4 vibe coming at all. And I'm like it's going by at a blistering pace. I'm trying to track down the groupings of the 2s and the 3s and where is this landing. And then when that backbeat comes in, I actually immediately went back to the beginning of the tune and tried to contextualize the rhythm in 4/4, and that became home base for me. So I came to feel it as 4/4 that's just changing the landscape of what that actually feels like. Instead of just breaking it up into even groups of 4, let's do a few 9s and a 5, and that adds up. But that even happens in simpler contexts too. I mean, think of Coldplay's Clocks, right? Like, that's a very simplified version of a way to break up 4/4 into 3 plus 3 plus 2. Mm-hmm. So it can be a very simple rhythm that's accessible, or it can also be something that's much more complex, like the 9s and the 5s. So, it's really half a dozen or the other, but each player is going to approach it differently. How did you end up settling into it, or do you change as you go through the tune?
Yeah, so when I was learning it, I actually was coming from, there's this Bill Bruford song called Hell's Bells, and I did a video of it a long time ago, and it's in 1908. And so I was like, this is kind of like that, maybe. And I was thinking, okay, so maybe they've got this polyrhythm. I was like way overcomplicating it. And then eventually I realized it's decca 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 decca. So 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2, and then 1 2 3 1 2. That bar of 5.
It's that last bar that gets you. That last beat.
Right. And what's funny is I freaking studied this piece like in preparation for this video, because not only is it so difficult to just get plugged into your head, but playing it on the guitar is just such a ridiculous challenge. And there's all these people who are like, oh, that's a Chon chord, but it's true. Like these guys have dexterity up the wazoo. I mean, not literally, I don't know, but
exactly, whatever that may mean.
Yeah, but when I was learning it, I was like, okay, this is it. This is how you count it. This is how you play it. Then I go into Logic. I sit at my computer. I record it. And then I'm ready to send it to you because I'm like, all right, it's good. It's good. I add a 4/4 click, and it doesn't line up. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And I was in that bar of 5, I was adding a 16th note. So it was 9996. 9996.
Oh,
and
no.
then like every time the 4 came back to the 1, it was out of alignment. And after all the iterations, I had a whole extra measure of 4/4, and I was like, what did I do?
Because there was that many bars. So
that's right. I added that many 16th notes across all the repetitions. So
that's called genius right there. That's not a mistake. That's genius. That's truly spectacular.
Well, what's funny is I was just playing to a click. It didn't hit the 1. It was just the steady click. No different sound on the 1. So I'm grooving. I'm recording at night, and I'm like, all right, getting ready for Zach. And then I record the click, and it's off, and I was like, this song's hard. It's just hard.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And it goes by at a blistering pace. I mean,
it really does.
It's not kind.
And they're not playing to a click either. Like I put the song in Logic.
Oh.
And they speed up, they slow down. It's totally, they're playing live in the studio. So that's a really cool aspect of this song.
Awesome. That's really cool. I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yeah. So tell me about how you approach this, because we repeat it 4 times.
Yep.
We do one thing twice, and then we do something else, and then we do something else. So share about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I kind of heard how your part was progressing, and I think it seems like my part needs to progress as well, so I wanted to match that progression of intensity as we went. And so, I started really spelling out the 9s and the 5 pretty clearly. And for me, the thing that really dictates to the ear what you're hearing is the hi-hats. The brightest sound has the most subdivision, right? But before we get into that detail, like the larger landscape is every bar for me has, like the average rock beat, has a downbeat and a backbeat side of it, right? So the first 9 is like my downbeat side, second 9 is my snare drum backbeat side, third 9 is back to kick drum centered, fourth grouping, which is group of 5, then is snare drum again. So it has that larger rock context to it, but then underneath that with the 9s, as you were feeling, I feel it as 3, 2, 2, 2, right? Adding up to 9. But all my 3s, I play kind of like a shuffle on the hi-hat for one little moment. It's like a shuffle, right? Just to fill the space. And so that's kind of how I break it down to make it clear to the ear that that's kind of how the groupings are working. But then the fascinating part is after you loop through that twice with kind of slowly embellishing some extra kick drums, some extra hi-hat notes, just to fill out those spaces a little more that reflect the record. Then when that backbeat comes in, like your brain is just got to click into a totally different mode. And that was surprisingly tough for me. But then once that settles in, it feels good. And then it's the kick drum. Once the left hand goes steady, it's the kick drum that's expressing the groups of 9 and the groups of 5. And I love that flip. It was, for a while, it's like, man, it's just that hi-hat that's spelling it out. And then the kick drum is playing what ends up being the 1, the E of 3, the and of 1, and then the of 3 is how it breaks down for me. That becomes the kick drum rhythm with a little further embellishment. And I thought, when you finally jump up an octave or whatever the new voicing is for the last lap, I thought, let me put these things together. Let me drop the kick drum then on the quarter notes. Snare drum stays largely on backbeats, but go back to the expression of the 9s and 5s on the hi-hat to just kind of layer them a little more.
Yeah.
And I like how that came out, and it was fun.
Man, you're too humble because you're like, I just like how that came out. And I watched it and I was like, what? How did it, what is he doing? But great. For real, like, okay, for the actual listener, not the humble guy, for the actual listener, you need to realize Zach is playing on the 4th time the groups of 9, 9, 9, 5, and 4, 4 at the same time. And when Zach is saying, yeah, I thought that was cool, it's like he's got total independence going on. And this is not easy stuff. And what's crazy is we're just playing, one part of the song. I don't know, Zach, if you've really dug into the rest of the song, but there's a part near the end where the drummer is soloing over these rhythms, and the guitars are just playing the chords, the chord strikes, like on the 9 or the 1, 1, 1, and he's doing these rolls and stuff, and I'm like, this is crazy. Can you talk about, from a drummer's perspective, what's going on in the song later on?
Yes. So I think, I think similarly to guitarists, maybe when you start a line, you have a note that you're kind of ultimately aiming for. At least guitarists I've talked to, they talk about that being an improvisational technique where you play, but at least you have a sense of where you want to end your line. You may not know how you're going to get there, but you've got like a key note that you want to get to. I think from a drum perspective, you aim for certain spots. You're filling through the bar, but you've got to land. You want to land on that last grouping with like a good, solid expression of that group of 5 at the end. And maybe you improvise and then you hit that again. But I think it's just, as a musician listens to more and more music that does not so obviously spell out the pulse, you begin to free yourself and untether yourself from needing to express the pulse and being able to say more rhythmic ideas that might confuse you at first, but once you've listened to enough music and absorbed enough, you can kind of become a little more untethered and then just aim for that key moment halfway down the bar with a lot of freedom in the meantime. That to me is what it feels like.
It's funny, Morgan Agren, do you know him?
I don't.
Okay, he's the Swedish drummer who is just, he's got that childlike creativity. It's that lifelong kindergarten thing going on. And he was playing for Frank Zappa when he was like 18 years old. One of those guys who's just on another planet. Yeah. Or as they say, Sweden, that's where he lives. And he watched a video of Chon and he said, this guy plays the drums like a child. Like,
Wow.
he's completely free, creatively free.
Yeah.
And he said, I love what is going on in this band with this drummer. And I didn't know if you had any sort of sense of that playfulness going on in this song like I do.
I mean, I think I dive so hard into it intellectually that like the personality of the kit did not necessarily hit me right away. Like, I wasn't connecting to that part of it necessarily because I'm just dialing into, like, what is going on here? Like, what's the math? How does this come together? But it definitely, there's a certain abandon in the whole band as a whole. I feel like
Yeah.
especially when the guitar solo first comes in over all that space from the rest of the rhythm section. There's a real freedom to just like say something and not have to be right on the grid and not have to be something you could dictate easily, but just like, I want to make this statement. It's just, I believe in this statement, I'm going to make it. That's kind of where I feel like that playfulness and that abandon plays out for me as I listen to it.
Another cool thing about playing in odd meters, and you and I a long time ago talked about taking the odd out of odd meters, as a
Yes.
series or something. But
Yeah.
you really have to, like, to truly play, and I mean like the childlike play in this kind of situation, you have to have mastered it. That
Yeah.
you can't just walk into it and go, you can't look at a chart and go, oh yeah, 9995. Yeah, you want me to solo over that? Like, that's not how it works. So
No.
I thought it'd be cool to hear, I'm sure you've played some pretty complex stuff. I mean, I've seen it on your Instagram. Like,
Sure.
how do you get to that point where you're ready to play over this stuff that is very cerebral at first?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a very specific thing that I do that has been absolutely invaluable, and I'm not sure if other people do this or not, but I'm a runner. So I go out and I run a lot, and there's a built-in metronome when you run as you build a steady pace, and there's a built-in cadence of right and left. So I have immediately a little bit of a construct of a downbeat and a backbeat, or a pulse and an offbeat, okay? And so I go around and I'm like snapping my fingers as I run in different groupings relative to the pulse, because I don't have to think about what my legs are doing. They just go. Whereas if I'm playing drums and some other coordination, sometimes you have to think about, like, where's my downbeat, where's my backbeat. But when you're running, that just goes by, and you can, if I play a certain pattern and I get to the end of it and I land on my left foot instead of my right foot where I started, I know then, okay, this is odd in some way. And if it falls in between feet, I know it's odd to the 16th. And if it lands on the foot, I know it's odd to the 8th. And I just loop cycles like that when I run all the time. Or if I'm learning a new tune like this, I will just sing it and sing the groupings as I run. And it gets it deep. Because then you've got 45 minutes of just basically meditating on this rhythmic cycle over a built-in physical pulse. It's really helpful.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I go for a half-hour intense walk every morning.
Yeah.
And I
do you do this?
Yeah, because I'm swinging my arms, and then for this song, learning this song, I'm like this. Da, 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 da. And I'm trying to make sure I've got the clicks going at the right time. So I'll be walking, and then as my arm swings forward, that's my, okay, it's odd on the 8th or odd on the 16th. It's the same thing for me. But I'm not using my feet. I'm snapping. But I need to add that third layer of the feet going on. Get 3 polyrhythms going on.
Yes. Yeah. That's when it really takes off right there.
Awesome. Well, I think we have beaten this to death, man. But what's really cool about it, I'll say one last thing, is there's just something about creative music, especially that plays with rhythm. Yeah. And I don't know what it is. It's always grabbed my attention. But, like, to hear something like this, it's so refreshing. And then when they bring in that 4/4, you feel totally calm, comfortable with it.
Yep.
But it's like the musician in you knows there's a trick. And it's like a magic trick where someone, that the coin cannot literally disappear into thin air. You know that.
Right.
It's like, okay, he's hiding it somewhere, right? It might be behind his hand or something. It might be in his sleeve. It's there.
I like this metaphor.
But it's so like that's the comfort, but the discomfort is knowing that he knew how to do it. Like he pulled the coin out of thin air, and that to me is like the beauty of this kind of music, because you know he's playing in 4/4, but you also know they're not playing in 4/4.
Right. Yeah, and who knows what they thought? I mean, they might be thinking totally in the other groupings. I have long felt that more fringe and eccentric rhythms are more acceptable to a listener's ear. In other words, unusual rhythms with consonant harmony is more approachable than comfortable rhythms and dissonant harmony.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just something accessible to more people within interesting rhythmic content than there is interesting harmonic content. It's easier to connect to, I feel like.
It's harder to dance to.
I'll give you that. I mean, yeah, okay, you got me there.
Right on. So thank you so much, Zach. And I just want to point everyone to your Instagram, because it's just so fun. And you are having fun at the drums every day, man.
It's a gift.
Yeah, and I have certainly, I mean, I've sent you texts like, okay, I need to see the sheet music for this.
Right, what is going on there? Well, keep it up, man. I love to share, because every time I watch something that you're doing, it's inspiring and it's pointing me to new music. And you just gave me a new list of 5 new records to listen to, just last month when I reached out to you, and so I appreciate that. Thanks for having me be a part of this. I really loved it.